do it in a way that they present themselves, not to run into your problems. But okay, let me start with Mr. DAVOR RUNJE. Please, would you come to the stage, sir? DAVOR, as you all know, is the co-founder of an AI startup called ERT, which has made some waves throughout media and everywhere on the scene with their state-of-the-art models. And he's also serving as the president of Croatia's Independent Software Exporters Association called CISEX. Mr. RATKO MUTAVDŽIĆ, would you please come to the stage? You all know RATKO. RATKO also works as, are you head of HUP ICT or? Member, one of the esteemed members. And Mr. DAMIR SABOL, please, would you come to the stage? You all know DAMIR. DAMIR founded Microblink and PHOTOMATH and all sorts of things, so I don't need to introduce him anymore. And Mr. ŽMAK, if he's here, from INFOBIP, VP Products. Thank you very much for joining. As you can see, a very gender-balanced panel today. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, but we'll try to. Yeah, I know. Well, we had Heidi present State of Croatian AI and the AI boom here, and we saw that there's still room to grow for women to enter the field and also to become co-founders and founders of it. But we also have seen some really, really interesting results in terms of the number of startups that's been starting to pop up everywhere around Croatia. We've seen a huge wave of popularity of AI with the elements of AI course and everything else. And the idea of this panel is actually to talk a little bit about what this actually means for all of us and where the scene is heading. And so my first question is for DAVOR, of course. Because DAVOR, when we did this research, we had a lot of issues, and we encountered, it really is difficult, I must say, and talking on the last panel also with Ivana, so it's not like the AI scene before CroAI was founded is really like out there and was really having this culture of dialogue with anybody else. We've seen it also from the cooperation with the academia. So it's still, most of us are kind of holding to ourselves, having our eyes on the outside markets, trying to export, dealing with our own problems. But CISEX has done also a lot of research, and you published some of that this year. Could you share a little bit more about that, what you identified? And I know Tajana did it, and you can all, clap Tajana and not DAVOR for presenting it. But maybe you could share a bit more about what were some of the findings, some of the most interesting findings.
Okay, I'll talk about myself a bit later, but this whole thing about cooperation with academia is actually, I think, quite a big problem. Yeah. Things are happening here. So here we have Matija Srbić from FAIR, I think somewhere I saw him. Basically, this summer we actually wrote one of the joint funding proposal together with FAIR and Algebra as a CISEX to actually bring those deep tech expertise that actually exist in our university to commercial entities that are good in doing development, but not necessarily research, and connecting university that is excelling at research, but they're not really good in developing because that's just not their business model or the point of existence. So things are happening here. One of the problems, structural problem that we actually have, there's a lot of cooperation between CISEX and HUP and HGK and all other, and CroAI and other, I would say, civil society entities. We're trying to get the IT or digital society or whatever the name will be as one of the vertical components into our strategy of smart specialization. Tajana can tell you far more about it, but actually the problem is if you try to get some kind of collaboration between university and some commercial entity, if it's not in one of those verticals, whatever they are right now or they're changing it, you're out of luck and you cannot do it. And basically we are fighting for anything that is digital, not necessarily just IT, but whatever is like a new technology. If it's working out by itself, let's just like be able to fund it with EU funds, not Croatian one. But the problem is without that main document that we as a country have to deliver, we cannot actually apply for EU fund, and this is something that we are fighting for a long time, and everybody here is involved in this fight one way or the other. And so these are like the big things that are happening. Once we get that thing off the table, I think the collaboration will improve, because then we can directly go to university, we can say, okay, we need a researcher for that kind of particular area, we're going to do the development, you're going to do the research, let's get the funding, let's kickstart it. Some of those things will, of course, go nowhere, but we need to increase the number of those kind of projects. And if you look at just the numbers of university, both Algebra and FAIR and probably everybody else, they're growing in capacity, in research capacity, number of students. So there's a lot of talent here, but right now we're not really using it optimally.
So you see that as one of the major obstacles that if now would be solved to get it like really horizontal?
It's one of the biggest one. I would not say the only one. We have plenty of work to get there, but that's something that is like really right now on the table, because right now we are in the process of defining the new strategy, which will be valid, I think, like 2029 or something like that. So we're like, it's like almost a decade.
Yeah,
so, and it's happening now in these few months, not like...
No, absolutely. And I think it's like, I wouldn't say it's the first time, but I think it was very remarkable to see that all the organizations, so with HOOP and CISEX and CroAI and the whole tech scene kind of gathered together and was really quick to react and really push for this to happen. So we definitely hope to see...
Yeah, we have joint meetings, I would say, like on a weekly level now, to actually coordinate between ourselves, and because it's such an important thing. It's not, we all have a little bit different agendas. We are more like oriented to export and the startup scene, and we want to see Croatian companies being globally successful. We are not really that much interested in working with the government and the local market. That's not what we do. I mean, some companies are doing, but that's not the primary reason that we exist. But these kind of things are like no-brainer for the whole industry. Like, we need to get this kind of funding, EU funding. We're not asking any money from the government. We're actually getting just to have the equal access to EU funds as any other country in the Europe. Because apart from Croatia, I think only Cypr doesn't have some kind of IT vertical in their smart specialization. Yeah, it's a big thing, actually.
No, I think it's a big thing, and I think it's very welcomed by the fact that your report came out, and then we see this kind of research really pointing out in the direction that the scene is growing. It's not just a few scattered out. But that's what I wanted to ask Damir. So Damir, if you now look at the whole, as Heidi called it, like the graveyard of logos, because this actual visualization doesn't serve any other purpose than just to show that there are many dots there and that there are many startups popping up. When you started way back when, you know, it was not the case, or was it?
When I started, startup was not something that was...
It was even recognized as...
Yeah, really it wasn't recognized, of course. So like, it was totally different environment. It was 25 years ago that I started actually already working on building a startup. So it wasn't recognized, funding was not available. Government funding was actually not available, I guess. I think it wasn't. Maybe for some people, but for me it wasn't. So it is actually a dramatically different environment today that we had, I don't know, 25 years ago or 20 years ago or even 15 years ago. So government funding, EU funding is available. Grants are available. So we used several grants to actually help our research. And there are some good things. And then at one point we've decided not to use government grants because we thought this makes no sense. We could have, like, it was possible for us to get several million euros, I guess, for this project. But our conclusion was that it is actually bad for us to take several million euros. So if it is bad for you to take several million euros, that you would need to ask yourself why somebody wouldn't like to take this money. And the reasons were, this is very bureaucratic process, and we would need to say today what we want to develop in 3 or 4 or 5 years, which is totally impossible. So everybody knows that, and everybody will actually, allow you to adjust on this path. But it is a problem. And then we thought this is like too expensive for us to take several million euros. And it is opportunity cost that we are missing here. So we decided not to take this money. And we received a lot of like significant investment from venture capital funds, and the difference is really dramatic. So our investors, and I think it's much better source of funding. Like if you can get grants that will allow you to bootstrap, which is also valuable. We used some grants in the beginning to help us, and it was good. It was helpful, but then later with this bigger money, it was much better for us to go with investors. And our investors are telling us that we shouldn't like spend our time on reports. Any reports, they are telling us, you know, you should do your job and build your company, build your product, and don't worry about reports. And these are millions. We raised like $40 million in PHOTOMATH, and it was like, no, there is my responsibility as a CEO to do it right, but they don't require actually. Okay, now they start, but it is now after $40 million they start, like, you know. But so it is totally different. I think that small grants are very useful. Grants that are not bureaucratic are very useful, but actually real things are happening in like when you start building commercially and raise money from real investors.
But how much do you feel, so Davor mentioned, of course, I mean, if you're an AI startup or a startup from Croatia, you somehow naturally and logically have the idea that you want to go out into the world. So you don't have this misconception, I'm going to build a business serving the Croatian market, which is obviously huge and very demanding. How much do you think is necessary for a startup at this early stage to get some sort of local client in the very beginning? Or are they naturally able to go out? I mean, even from your experience, did you have to like do some of the things here just to prove your case or the idea, the hypothesis, and then kind of scale out?
If you can do it here, you can do it anywhere. So it's like, it's a good approach. Yeah, we had this approach. We started here, and actually this is our proof of concept locally, and it was good approach. But actually because of this, we didn't understand really the potential of like the global market, but it was good. So you can do it here locally, but you know, today it's like, do you have to do it locally? If you want to launch something globally, then you can go globally, and you will find your I don't know, test customers somewhere else before in Croatia. But if you have something specific that you need local deployment, it is good. So it depends. There is no rule.
Sorry, Davor, yes?
I just wanted to say, just to completely agree, that it's even easier to go global today because the things changed since 2 years ago. Like today, like remote work, remote customers, remote clients, you used to, for in B2B business at least, you had to go to customer. Now you don't really. So it changed. So even if even in the early stage, you can just decide to go in some other country because you're just going to call people, email them, have conference calls. It's a different ballgame. It's definitely a different ballgame than 2 years ago, I would say.
Yeah, but what do you think? Like, so RATKO, for example, at HUP ICT, you also, I mean, you've been around for many years and you talk to a lot of these people. What do you think is like the most important thing for startups from Croatia or companies from Croatia to make a good case outside? Is it that you hear and talk to them and they say, okay, you know, they don't really take us serious if we're from Croatia, this is some small Eastern European country, or is that not even the case anymore? Because the ICT industry obviously seems to be very successful and a very healthy part of this economy. Is this perceived abroad as well?
I don't think that anyone has an issue today with the company coming from Croatia. I mean, these guys can actually testify this, right? Maybe now the issue is that maybe we spend a little bit more time than some other countries, or startups from other countries, proving the case. And I think one of the major issue that we have is how fast we can build and sustain ecosystems around anything, including AI, right? So, I mean, this is 5th year of this conference, and we have a feeling that we are pushing AI, you know, like building this ecosystem and so forth. And still, if you think like in triple helix or something like that, you know, like we are still missing some of the pieces over there to be very effective. And sometimes it reminds me like you're buying a car, tires for your car, and then you're buying different ones, right? And they have a limitation on the speed, and so you're trying to drive really fast, but one of your tires is limited to 80 kilometers per hour. Then, you know, that's the maximum you can really drive, right? When you're building something like that, this ecosystem. And I think that speed is still, we have a lot of things to do, right? Just to give you an example, and Željko is going to hate me for this one, but I understand the budget behind the conference, right? And then this is a conference which is very much ecosystem conference, which is done by practically zero profit type of approach, right? Even if it shouldn't be like that one. And in the 5th year, right? So building the ecosystem is super, super hard. Now, what I'm in other countries, just because we have the opportunity to work with many of those, right? And Tomislav was presenting a little bit about the testbed framework in Estonia, right? That's driven by the government, right? It was not even driven by the community AI or ecosystem of startups and so forth. In the first place, that was driven by the government. It's purely government type of looking for the innovation work. So unfortunately or fortunately, that's a question, right? The ecosystem building task is left to the companies like INFOBIP and REMATS and PHOTOMATH and ART, right? Where they're like probably, and I don't want to speak on their behalf, they will, right? They are thinking about now, okay, now we did a huge thing and now we need to build a kind of ecosystem of other companies which we pull in, right? And which will work with us and we will expand through this one, which is in some of the countries actually a good role where the government, for example, plays, right? Just think back, right? And Silicon Valley or whatever was kind of exploding, like how did that really explode?
Absolutely.
But that is the thing to look at, like, you know, speed of ecosystem. That I think that's the biggest problem that we have.
No, absolutely.
If I can just add one little thing. So one of those things that constantly coming up with, I don't know, analysis of a global World Bank and so on and so forth. So IT in Croatia is actually growing faster than any other industry, and we think it's fantastic. And then they tell us like, yeah, sure, but like IT in Croatia is like much smaller than in the rest of the Europe in the growth rate. And I said like, exactly this is the problem. Because, I mean, we get there eventually, all of us, but it takes much longer for us than what we would need in some other countries. And we really need to like start copy-pasting the best practices from around the world, especially from Europe. I mean, there are like good of them.
Yeah, one of those practices, I mean, especially you mentioned Silicon Valley, is actually the cooperation between the individual companies, sharing the knowledge, being there for each other. So to ask KREŠ as well, I mean, the question, can you make it from Croatia and be taken seriously, obviously, is like one big issue. Can you be taken from a small town of Vodnjan and then get out globally is obviously also a big yes. But now that you're there and you're an official unicorn, how do you see your role? How do you see, facilitating this whole market, this whole scene? I know we've been at Shift this year. We've seen a lot of things that you do, but maybe you could share a little bit about the mindset that is behind all of that.
Yeah, for starting, I think the speed is quite important in all what we are saying. So the speed of companies, developers, startups, that's crucial. To have a good product, but also to launch it fast, validate it, and then iterate. So that's the critical part for everybody here working in a startup or thinking of, or in a company. We are still in that mindset. So we are still super fast. We are still trying to launch big products under 3 months, and that's how we are still very competitive on the global market.
Yeah.
In terms of Croatia, I would say there are 2 main streams how INFOBIP is working. One is evangelization of AI, but also working with the government, Croatian organizations to implement processes, frameworks to grow the whole AI ecosystem. So that's one stream, which includes, and there have been talks even earlier today, legislation changes, sandbox frameworks, educational frameworks, working with government on some use cases and so on. So this is one big area that we are focused on, because historically we have always trying to help the community starting from Vodnjan, but also now on the larger Croatian scale. And More importantly, the second direction is that we are building a platform and we are opening our platform. This is a big initiative for Q4 actually in INFOBIP, where we want to open the platform so that startups, companies can start building on top of our platform, build solutions. In that way, we are opening the platform so an AI, you can build AI solution based on the data that there is, with GDPR, of course, in mind. You can build personalization stuff and so on, chatbots, AI engines, and so on. So the idea is that we allow companies from Croatia, also through our startup hub, to have the availability to sell and to pitch on the global scale. And this is, so we are always trying to be very practical, and this is a way how we are really trying to help companies to have the access to the whole world, actually.
Yeah, but we're now talking about kids that are 18, 19, 20 years old. So as Damir said, 25 years ago, I started a startup, and if you would have said to somebody, I'm starting a startup, they were like, what is that? It's probably something shady. You're trying to do something illegal or who knows what. And nowadays you also do angel investments and many of these different things, trying to support people that kind of aligned with the mission and vision. As example, the latest investment was into STEMI, I think, right? Which also INFOBIP kind of supported through the whole AI chatbots around the schools. But what can you learn from that? So what do you get in return from that? How does this relationship work? Because it's obviously a quid pro quo kind of thing.
It is. When I invest money into startups, I just forget about it immediately. That's my approach. But it's like I invested into STEMI because I like them. They are actually building something important, and I think they will. This is like important. If you're building something important and something good, then usually this can be good business. That's my approach here, and I like them. They are like very patiently building, and I think I can recognize good startups now. So that was this is the reason, and I want to help them. That's the biggest
So you
motivation.
obviously have some sort of already some recipe of an algorithm. Maybe you could share with us. So when you say I can recognize a good startup,
you spend 25 years in startup world building companies, then you can recognize.
I am sure of that, but what would you say? Like, what are the top three things?
But you need passion. You need to have like a big vision. You need to execute. You need to survive. You need to gather a good team. So if you see some of these things happening, then it is a good startup. And this still doesn't guarantee you will make money on it. But these like motives are not financial. My motives were never financial. I always try to build the best product. We are now trying to build the best product in the world. It is not easy, of course. It's hard. But I would say that technology part is not as hard. Everything else is. We have really talented people. We are giving opportunity to young people also to join, to learn. And I think that's our biggest, it's not our goal just to build things, and it's our goal to also educate people. And the best way to actually influence this environment and AI scene is to actually educate people and give them opportunity to build with us. And this is what we are doing, and we'll continue with this. And I think that's very important. I am not a big, I'm a bit tired with government support and expecting this. I'm in different situation. It can be really helpful when you start, and this will be my recommendation. If you can get a grant of $500,000 kunas or 200, 300,000, 500,000, 1 million, something like that, and this is possible, take it and try to build something. But I'm not a fan of in later stages. I think that then companies become dependent on grants and not actually building something for the market. And this can be seen with startups. So startups and companies that can do it by themselves, they will do it by themselves. They will find investors, and some companies will focus, and I know that there are companies that are focusing on getting financing and not actually building product for the market. And when you are successful, when you have good traction, it is not difficult to raise money from world-class investors, and there is competition. So government has competition in actually handing out money. So yeah, it's like interesting learnings. I would say, you know, like if you can focus on the market and you know, share this knowledge. Give opportunities to young people to join. I think this is for me, that was the best way for us as a company to influence and help this scene.
Absolutely. But so also what we saw from the research, I mean, like these are some of the issues that are, if you would take a look at what the whole global startup market is actually experiencing, is always this shortage of AI talents and stuff like that. And I think also the idea of how difficult or easy it is actually to break out, you know, from your own borders. And I think you guys say that it's a question of mindset. It's a question if you believe that you can do it, if you want to do it, if you go globally. DAVOR, you also mentioned it is possible. But how to address, in your view, or I know you had also discussions around that in CISEX, like how do we get more talent involved? How do we get the market to grow and have more people that can, you know, be employed here, and not to have all these people go, I don't know, work somewhere abroad once they've finished studies?
Actually, I think it's actually even worse today than it was just like a few years ago. So a few years ago, you actually had to move somewhere. And if you wanted to work for, I don't know, Google in Zurich, or you go to Facebook to London, you actually had to move your family over there. And that's a big thing. I mean, it's not easy. But what is happening today, and we can actually even feel it this year by looking into statistics of, for example, these pauschalni obrti are starting to grow again. Single band companies are starting to grow again, and the reason is not because we have too many like small startups. No, actually, there's a lot of push of the big global companies just hiring people to do remote work. They take the best talent, not juniors. They take like people with 5, 10, 15 years of experience. They pay them a lot because they don't have to pay any taxes. It's a company now, it's not a salary. So even without people moving abroad, which was a big problem, now it's even worse because some of them will go to London in Facebook because they want to feel the London life, and it's understandable when you're young. But also the older, the most crucial parts in our company, like the senior people that can actually deliver the project, that can build juniors, they're easily taken by like a lot of money. Not like 20% more, but like double, 3 times as much, and it's becoming really a big issue. So the only solution is actually to be globally competitive. Like you have to either be INFOBIP or you have to be PHOTOMATH or one of those companies that actually can hire anybody anywhere in the world, including in Croatia. But they will hire in Croatia, and what is even more important, they will give to community far more than foreign companies. Because you will not see Google building campuses here, but you're going to see INFOBIP building it. You're going to see RIMAC. You're going to see many companies. Now Orca is building one in Osijek. Actually, when you have local funders, they give a lot more back to the community than you just people that are working here. And to make it globally competitive, one of the biggest problems is actually not when you're big enough and you go to US and get money. I mean, INFOBIP showed, PHOTOMATH showed. And so when you're really at that level, the whole world is your playing field. The problem is when you're looking for the first 100K euros or $500,000, because this is actually quite difficult in Croatia right now. One of the solutions is either government's fund, tax breaks for investors. I'm going to have to leave soon because I actually have one meeting with investor, one global VC fund that wants to invest like in a bunch of Croatian companies. Actually, they say like, could you find like 4 to 5 like INFOBIPs in Croatia for us? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like,
sure. Let me just go in my pocket and pull them out.
Give me a break. There are unique stories. And we actually have to increase the number of these small startups surviving this $500,000 phase, because then we're going to have 10 million, 100 billion. And actually getting, like, if I had 4 INFOBIPs today, they would be easy to fund actually. But we cannot generate them because there's too many of them actually die in this process. And you can see it, I don't know, we are all mentors in algebra, in BERT, in all kinds of incubators. A lot of talent, they go there, they spend a year, they do a lot of things, and they are looking for $500,000, but they don't have revenue, they don't have... So in US or anywhere in Europe, they could easily get funding. Over here, unless you have some like financial tracking, it's very difficult. And then they start doing other things, and then the whole thing breaks apart because you need money.
So I think that's like the most endangered level of
yeah, actually, because the local money is always financing the early stage. Early stage startup is always financed by local investors. But there has to be some kind of money flowing in this like early stage, mostly going to go nowhere kind of things. And then later, if you are INFOBIP and PHOTOMATH, you'll be fine.
Sure.
That's not a problem.
Obvious. But Ratko, so how do you see, I mean, the whole fact with the financing? I know like Microsoft also had many different initiatives trying to work with smaller scale startups, trying to even give them the ability to, you know, participate in hackathons, get some sort of use cases, get some sort of materials to be able to present themselves better, their idea, what they do. Do you also feel like that is the most endangered level of the whole scene here in Croatia?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you look at the big companies, I think it's obvious that even if they do have like investment programs and so forth, they kind of limit those programs usually, right, to the things that they can actually benefit from, right? It's not just like, okay, people will do something in the cloud and then there will be consumption. We can take the example of MemGraph, which just, it was led by Microsoft V12. Because they're doing something which is potentially also very important to the things that we do on the broader scale. So all these big companies, including in Croatia, the big ones that we work with, they would always have cases which kind of belong to them because the data is over there, user scenarios are over there, and so forth, right? So maybe what we are missing kind of cases and environments on the broader scale. So that's why BERT and all these basically incubators are super important because they can give you like broader scale of, you know, cases and data and whatever, including the investments, right? And then we still, I don't know, probably 10 years ago it started. Like we still cannot say, okay, there's a abundant number of those who actually do that, right? Just to comment a little bit on education and the capacity, I think that's now a significant problem right now. I can tell you that in my small company, at any point of time, there's like 50,000 open positions, 50,000, right? And it's super hard to get people. It became super hard, right? So, and not just for us, for everybody. And these mid-sized type of companies like are in way much better position than the big ones. So things are very much shifting, and it's not just about building a bigger scale of, I don't know, universities and programs which educate people. One of the things which doesn't work for us is how international we are. I just count the number of foreign students in Croatia and think about the internationalization of the whole thing and how much our students are learning, you know, in the terms of next day they will have a startup companies, they need to go out, they need to be aggressive, they need to work in the foreign markets and so forth, when, you know, like 95% of students are basically Croatian students in our universities, right? So when I was talking about triple helix and you know, the thing that needs to kind of be built in terms of ecosystem, there's so many factors over there today, and it's not getting easier. I would say that I would align to what DAVOR said, like, yeah, today we have even more issues to deal with.
Sure.
And this is a problem, like what we see is like, there is not enough experience in Croatian market to actually build world-class products. So when you have opportunity to actually be, and that's my advice, if you have opportunity to be part of the company that works globally, try that and try to learn, because like sure, also with INFOBIP is like a global company, and they actually, nobody knew about them. I went to Mobile World Congress like 5 years ago, and they were like big, you know, like
big stand, huge
big stand, like right next to Google's, and like, who
are these guys?
It's 6 years ago. Like I knew about INFOBIP, but then I was also surprised, and nobody knew. And they are a global company from the beginning, actually, with actually great initial strategy that give them great acceleration. So I would say it is important, and we can see, you know, like lack of experience that we see that from Silicon Valley. And we can actually, we're trying to bring, we have employees, we have 15, 16 employees there, and we can then try to actually bring this experience here, and that's great opportunity. But it is very difficult to find the right experience here. What we don't have issues with, there are really talented technical people that we can hire, of course not enough. It's like business. And of course you would want, engineers and pay them 5,000 kunas per month. Sure. You would want great engineers, sure. But this is business, there is it's normal that it is difficult and hard to hire good people, even and not only engineers. I think good waiter, and it's like impossible to find. So of course, if you pay them 3 times what you want to pay them, no problem to find them. So this is absolutely, we need to be international, and we need to be global and globally competitive, because everything else will not work. And then regarding size of IT in Croatia, of course it is not as big as it should be, because the rest of the economy is not big or strong as it should be, and IT this directly correlates with strength of the real economy. Of course, old real economy. Economy is actually, IT is becoming real economy now. But these are normal things, and we need to understand where we are in this.
No, what I like about the fact is that, and you right. stated it 3, 4, 5 years ago, maybe you really had to go, abroad to get this international experience, to be able to come back and said, I worked at some, global products, and I had some global market experience and stuff like that. And nowadays, really, you can go and work at PHOTOMATH, and you have phenomenal employer branding, and people get drawn to that. I know for a fact there is a guy called Marko Velic who used to work at Facebook and now came back. I think he leads your AI team, and we have him at another panel in a few days as well. And so when I talk to him, it's always the same thing. I wanted to do that. That's why I went to Facebook. I wanted to do something that is globally interesting and competitive, and now I have the ability to do it back in my hometown. Why wouldn't I use that ability? But maybe before it wasn't like that. And one other thing, I think you have around 50% of all employees in PHOTOMATH are students or something like that. I don't know if
we have that's specific for, because we have a lot of content, and they create content and manage content, but we have a lot of students in our engineering also, and other departments, and this is important. It is very
important. So get them while they're younger. That's kind of one of the approaches. But INFOBIP, you're building the campus. You need to go get the money?
Yeah, not from me, unfortunately.
If you need to go get the money, of course you're excused. No problem. But Krešo, so you're now building campuses. You're now employing thousands and thousands of people. So how do you address that need? How do you employ them? How do you find them? Do you really get them? Once 2 years ago, I was in Vodnjan, and around the whole West, it was a very international team already back then. And when you show them pictures of the coast and history, and it probably is not very difficult to get them involved. Yeah. Thank you very much, DAVOR. RUNJE, please. Let's all clap. So he can get the money for all of us. DAVOR, show me the money. Thank you, DAVOR. Is it easier because they get to Vodnjan? Now you're building a big campus in Zagreb. How does that work?
So I was silent for a while because this sounded like a promotional paid for INFOBIP. Everybody's talking great thing, but I think PHOTOMATH is an exceptional company, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, agree.
Jokes aside, so we have the same challenges as everybody, as the colleagues mentioned. So I'm from products, and we are now hiring Portugal, Austin, Texas, Charlotte, London, St. Petersburg, Poland, all around the world. Because we cannot find this specific knowledge, which is product management, in Croatia. So there are I think maybe on Algebra there is a course about product management. AI is the same thing. So there are not enough AI courses, I think, on the faculties. Engineers, yeah, we have, but there is again few companies in Croatia who are absorbing a lot of talent. So we are using as a teaser Vodnjan and look at the national park there, but it is we need to offer vision, interesting ideas, pay them on the grades that are international level. So that's it's not just the very nice view on in.
Yeah, of course. Especially Clara is not. I don't know if that's how nice of a view there is, but yeah, you probably need to offer some other things as well.
Yeah, and then following that, what is important that, and we are here working with the government, with Ivana here, with the sponsorship between Mr. Plenković, our CEO, Silvio. We are working in a few streams to bring up new stuff into the educations, to work on the framework which will bring up new engineers, new data scientists, but also important other I don't know how to call this profiles,
Okay.
which are today even not existing, but will be super interesting. I know for linguists, which are super important if you're doing AI and speech to text, text to speech.
Humanistic experts in general,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
So that's super important that we don't look just in because when we speak AI, first what comes to mind is
Data
engineering and
scientists
data
or
science.
exactly.
And I can also say that we have good engineers, but IT and AI is not
the same thing.
only. No, it's not engineering. It is a lot is engineering, but it is not only engineering. And like building products, it's like so product management. That's like I would say one of the biggest opportunities. So if you are actually good at AI, actually and product management
You can count
in
on
AI.
No, yeah, okay. So
Yeah, okay,
how
so-
much does INFOBIP offer? How much does PHOTOMATH
No,
offer?
but
Let's just
no,
get
but
it.
that's it. Like
Yeah.
it's like we can't offer because there are no people. Like it's really you can't get this experience. It's difficult. So actually you need to build this experience and find this actually path. And it's not only IT and engineering. You need technical knowledge. And then so product management, design. So designing products that are based on AI. That's like not simple. It's quite difficult, and you need to get this experience. So design is very important because you can have the best technology. If design is like bad, then it won't look like the best technology. So then in the marketing, you need to make sure that user experience is great. So number and content that you are building, everything. So it's IT and AI are not only engineering, and then we need to understand that, and we need to build whole, like holistic approach there and cover everything that is there.
I think it's a really, really good point. And so one of the actions of CroAI, now if we all advertise your companies enough, let me just use this opportunity and tell a little bit about what CroAI is planning for next year, is actually creating this sort of community of product managers and future AI product designers, because we certainly do believe that engineers are super important. But we, as Damir stated, we see that the involvement of humanistic experts is extremely important.
And then once we have the engineers and data scientists and linguists and
sociologists, psychologists,
and so on, we need to create the framework where they can apply this knowledge, meaning easy things for the startups so that they can be faster. Where again, it's CroAI working on implementing some sandbox for an industry where these startups could be much faster in deploying their solutions with specific taxes or financial stuff, which would help them be again faster coming to the market, validating and then iterating. Because again, as I said, it's crucial that they are super fast in validating, and there are some countries, I know UK for example, with our fintech sandbox.
Yes.
Which they brought up so many startups just to the pure fact that they were so fast in getting to the end users, validating the solutions and being able to roll it out.
Absolutely.
So that's a critical part of the whole equation of the AI to succeed.
And also what is important, AI is not a few people working on something. AI is like organization. So company needs to be organized around AI process. So every company, Microblink and PHOTOMATH, are organized around the AI process, and you need to like manage this really well, and it's not the level where we are. We are like working hard to actually get there, but you know, like, so AI is actually, company needs to be organized around AI, and you need to manage it effectively. And this experience is also, we don't have this experience also, so management experience. And how do we build it? We build it by making mistakes and correcting them. But also, if you have people who are actually like good at this, that's very big advantage.
Sure. So we should definitely, all strive, and I'm really glad Ivana was here on the panel before. It really shows some sort of positive light on that side, that the government is also aware about the necessity of trying to involve themselves in that. And I would say I agree with you, Damir. So it's like, we should be realistic about that, not expecting them to do all the work. But yes,
the goal should be that we bring talent here, that people start coming here.
Yeah.
And that not our youngest and brightest people go on the third year of university to study outside, but we start getting people studying here. Zagreb, Rijeka, Split, Pula, Vodnjan.
And realistically, so I spent some time in London, in like Silicon Valley, and I really don't want to go there and live there. I had opportunity, of course, but I think that Croatia is actually a great place to live. You can have a good financial salary. I think it's like even government created some situation where actually individuals are much better positioned than companies, and this is not. It's okay. It's like nice for people to really be able to make very solid money and have low cost of living with like good security here. So there are things that we don't even know that we have. We don't actually
appreciate it. Maybe
appreciate them as some like people would say, like zero capital gain tax. Americans are like, when I tell them, they are like, they can't believe it. So there are some good things, and I think that we have everything. So we have good companies here. We have great living environment actually, and like it should happen. I hope it will happen naturally through like normal economic process, but we are really not using this opportunity as much as we could.
So it's all up to us again, and I really would love to end on that positive note.
But government can. They've done some things, and it can be done. But it's like like more. I always feel is they are more using like good PR opportunities than working on like long-term strategy. But that's politics, I guess.
I guess that's same everywhere. We are ready for your questions right now because we have about 2-3 minutes until Željko starts freaking out that we went over scale. Oh, he's giving me the satisfied look. Unbelievable. I haven't seen that for 8 days. Anybody here has a question for this unbelievable bunch of people here? Yes, please, sir. Oh, I think I recognize that young gentleman. He's very young. He wants to probably start a startup, maybe. Yeah, he probably wants to ask how to do it.
Yeah, this is the first time I have it. So the question for Damir. You said that it's much easier today for companies go globally than before, but what actually the startups, really young guys from like students, should do to do globally? What's the way? I mean, should they put an ad, or
they should build. They should build something. They should.
How do they find the first customer?
No, they should. If you build something, you experiment. You build something, and so you solve some problem that you see. I always try to solve my own problems that I saw, and with something. So when we started PHOTOMATH, I thought that it's actually a good tool to help me check my son's homework. And I was a lazy engineer, and then. Yeah, that was the motivation. This is the moment that I saw, yes, this is, and we were developing this technology, so we applied this technology. Then when we made a mistake, we tried to build an electronic invoicing system, and I think we didn't have right product market fit. Then I saw opportunity, and then we learned this process, and we saw opportunity to solve problem, like, okay, can we scan payment slips and actually have solutions for that. So we tried, we built, and that's it. And then first investment for PHOTOMATH. So we were building it, we built something, we got traction. I don't know, we just like built it, we got traction, and then I contacted investors in Silicon Valley and said, okay, like we are PHOTOMATH, like we are doing this. I sent cold email and then replied, yeah, we know who you are, just come here and we'll talk. So of course but it was difficult, it's not easy, but you need to build something. I think that's the only approach here. You build something good.
You'll get 3 answers. Wait. Kresha will give you an answer too.
Yeah. What Damir was saying before, so it's just not enough that you build the product and have a good technology. You need to go have the GTM, the pricing, and really push it to the market. Because a startup comes, they build a product, and they think automatically people will start coming. No, neither company which succeeded was sitting and waiting for people to come. So they did from Microsoft, Oracle, PHOTOMATH, everybody, and INFOBIP. We were flying around the world to get clients, to engage with them, to start the whole wheel spinning. Because good product is super important, but without the GTM, without selling it, you're not going to see. So that's very important, not just the technology, but also the go-to-market. That's something that is missing in Croatia, this mindset. When you talk with people from USA and Asia today, they have it already in the how they're educated through the whole high schools and elementary schools. They're all about marketing, about selling. We are technical guys, we know how to do products, and then we need somebody from marketing to push it. So that's, for each startup should be set up in this way, which is then the key to success.
Good point. Ratko?
Yeah, just a comment. What the guys are describing is, I would say, typical push type of approach, right? What good markets, good countries are doing, they have this component of pull too. So, I imagine for the guys would be much easier if like different guys from different industries, including public sector, which is in Croatia half of the IT spending, right, would come and say like, look, I was here, I recognized, I want to talk about how we implement this in whatever, right? And maybe there will be additional work or investment or something like that, but you will have this huge input, pull input, basically, saying like, okay, can you consider this, can you do this, and so forth. Like, unfortunately, most of the push approach here is left to its own devices, right? So people are just like trying to build, sell, find a way, and so forth, and everybody else is like flipping the fingers and like, okay, eventually maybe that will be okay. But that's the ecosystem problem, right?
Sure.
But then it's like, it is like, who survives this? Like, of course, not easy. It's not easy, and it's, and we can see, like most successful companies in Croatia were bootstrapped, more or less. Why? Because there was no other.
There was no other option.
No other option. So, like, this is what you do. Of course, like you need to build product, but find a way to actually launch this product. Like with PHOTOMATH, we applied to TechCrunch Disrupt, but we built a product. We applied there, and like it happened. We like somehow, but it was based on product and technology, and then later growth. And Microblink, we start selling early. That was the only way. To do it, of course, and it was good technology. So, so if you build something and it's good, it's like
easier
better
to sell.
chance
Probably
to sell
easier
it.
to sell.
And what I hear from investors, they will US investors will give you money, without like only if you are proven startup entrepreneur, then they will give you like you've done it like already
10
once.
times. Okay, once is
then
enough.
they will give you money, but like in US investors. Of course, there is a lot of money there, but they will want some proof, and I think the best way to do it, to prove something, is to build, and show them, okay, this is what I have, and they have results. Of course, it's not easy. You need to sell it. You need to find channels. But today, if you are really solving a problem, they will, somebody will understand you are solving a problem. This is how I approach it.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, what
3 for 1.
What a great, but thank you very much. There is a question. Sorry, I haven't seen you. So Željko, our lovely assistant, will bring the microphone to you.
Hi. So this question is actually for anyone answering. I've seen countries like Nepal and Bhutan and even Cuba that have ministries of IT. Do you think that Croatia should focus on developing something like that?
No. No, I would hope that I would hope us to have like a ministry or like government focus more on IT, but I lost my hope. So there's no it's No, it's like, I think it would be important, but I don't see this happening. So.
Yeah, if I can comment, depends, right? I mean, and I will tell you why. In some of the countries, they have ministry of whatever, which is very much focused on the modernization or digitalization of public sector, right, itself, you know. So it's kind of inwards looking, right, which is wrong. Now, in some of the countries, they also do have that one. For example, I kind of think, well, at least in HUP and all these, you know, we were pushing so hard for the Ministry of Economy in Croatia to recognize digital component in the terms of digital entrepreneurship and so forth. So digital economy, right?
Yeah.
And we think that a better form of organization of supporting something like that should exist, right? So when all these guys are having an issue or want to do something, well, currently they're lost in space, communicating toward the government. There's no single place where you can go and say like, well, these guys should represent a digital economy inside the government, right? And this is what is missing, right?
So maybe not necessarily a ministry of something.
I don't know. I don't
have someone who
we don't care about
understands
the
what you're
form.
talking
You know what I
about.
mean? It's about results, not the form.
Absolutely. KREŠIMIR.
If I would pick a ministry, it would be Ministry of Innovation. That's, I think, because if you look at Israel, what are they doing? So they're not innovating just in IT, they are innovating across everything. So all the startups, half European startups are there.
Now you see why KREŠIMIR is VP product.
But I think that
Ministry of Innovation. I think it encapsulates
it is
it
not
much
about
better.
the ministry.
No,
It is not. It is not. No, it's not like. It is about like why was Estonia successful in like IT development? Because their prime minister is actually at the time was somebody who understood really IT and possibilities there, and it is about like do they like as a group of leaders do they understand what we need to do, and will they lead us to this place? And I would say I'm afraid this is not happening now, and I can't see this will happen.
Okay.
It's like, but it's not pessimistic.
No,
It's not
no,
pessimistic.
no, that didn't even
Like I
sound
think
a bit like that.
we are doing our job. We will do our job. So
Yeah.
I'm still an optimist, but you know, on this side, government side, you know.
So it's up to us. Again, it's up to us. So whatever we do, that's good. That's what we have to live with. Okay, are there any more questions? Because I would love to wrap this up and have a lunch break right now, if that's okay with everyone. And thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you.